There have been 6 separate attacks in Texas this month, many of them parcel bombs, which the FBI believed to be the work of a serial bomber. 2 people were killed and 6 injured in the bombings. Jordan Bontka, a CBS News reporter, is at the scene in Austin where the suspect died.
When we got out here, we saw the football huddle of just dozens of federal investigators that were right here with an Austin Travis County EMS ambulance, and we also were able to capture just a few moments later a smile from across the street once our law enforcement services were able to confirm that the Austin bombing suspect has been killed by detonating some sort of device.
Officials in the Afghan capital Kabul say at least 26 people have died in a suicide bombing there. The Islamic State group said it was responsible. Jill McGivering reports.
Officials say a suicide bomber was making his way towards the Saki shrine in western Kabul, where a large crowd had gathered to celebrate the start of Nowruz, the traditional Afghan New Year. He blew himself up outside a hospital and near Kabul University when the security forces stopped him. Many in the crowd came from the country's Shia minority who worship at the shrine. They've been increasingly targeted in sectarian attacks in recent years, many of them carried out by the Islamic State group.
North Korea's state media has made what appears to be the first acknowledgement of a shift in North Korean policy towards the US since reports of a possible summit emerged. A news agency editorial noted signs of change in the country's relationship with Washington, but it made no mention of a proposed meeting between the leader Kim Jong-un and President Trump in May. BBC News. Some news just in. Police in Texas say they believe a suspect who died while being pursued by officers was the man behind a series of bomb attacks around the state capital, Austin. The police chief told reporters the suspect detonated a device inside his car. A Europe-wide survey commissioned by the Roman Catholic Church has revealed stark differences in the religious commitment of young people. Here's Martin Bashir.
Based upon data gathered from 22 nations, this study was commissioned to inform the Catholic Church's Synod of Bishops, which takes place in October. While 83% of young Poles say they are religious, that figure plummets to just 9% in the Czech Republic and 25% in Sweden. Its author, Professor Stephen Bullivant of St Mary's University, says that countries like Belgium, the Netherlands and Austria, which have traditionally strong religious cultures, appear to be in serious trouble in terms of general.
In its response to a warning from China's president that any attempt at separatism was doomed to fail and would be punished by history. Taipei said Xi Jinping's mission should be to expand democracy and protect human rights. Taiwan is concerned that the president, whose term limits have been removed, is now free to take whatever measures he wants to try to reunify the island with China. The academic who collected the Facebook data at the centre of a major privacy row has told the BBC he's been made a scapegoat. Alexander Coggan says he was advised the app was entirely legal. Facebook insists that Mr. Coggan broke its rules by transferring data to a third party for commercial purposes. A whistleblower claims the data was used by the company Cambridge Analytica to try to influence the outcome of the 2016 US presidential election, something it's denied.
Hello, this is Dan Damon with World Update from the BBC in London. Several items of breaking news as we come to air. Within the past hour, reported that the suspect in a series of bombings in the state capital of Texas, Austin, has died. The FBI said it believed that 6 separate attacks in Texas were the work of a serial bomber. We'll get more on that soon. Also, a blast in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. At least 26 people reported to have been killed. And in Nigeria, in the northeast of the country, many of the 110 schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram Islamist militants in February have been released unharmed. We'll hear more on that soon. And then, the academic who collected the Facebook data at the centre of a big privacy row has told the BBC he's been made a scapegoat. He's Dr. Alexander Coggan. He's been banned from that social network after the personal details of millions of people were harvested by an app that he created.
I'm honestly stunned by most of this. The events of the past week have been a total shell shock. And my view is that I'm being basically used as a scapegoat by both Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, when We thought we were acting perfectly appropriately. We thought we were doing something that was really normal, and we were assured by Cambridge Analytica that everything was perfectly legal and within the limits of the terms of service. One of the great mistakes I did here was I just didn't ask enough questions. That's certainly something I strongly regret now.
Well, more from him and a legal view in about 25 minutes' time. Scenes of jubilation in the northeast Nigerian town of Dapchi. Residents say most of the 110 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram from their secondary school in February have been released unharmed. All but 5 of the students have been brought back, it's believed, by the Islamist group to their town in Yobe State. One parent told the BBC the militants drove into the town in a motorcade and surrendered the girls to the community before immediately leaving. Miani Jones is in Lagos for us.
Yes, so we have spoken to the government spokesperson for President Buhari, who says he can now confirm that some of the Dapchi girls have been released. He was unable to give us more information, so it's unclear whether the girls were released as a result of government negotiations. But we did hear from the defense minister on Monday, who at the time told us to expect some movement on this story. So it seems that this release may be related to some form of government negotiations. We've also spoken to parents in Dapchi. Obviously, they're elated. One father who was out of the village told us that there were so many people in his house that he was unable to speak to his daughter who'd been released. Loads of well-wishers had come over to the house to congratulate them, and he said he was making his way back to see her as soon as possible, and he was absolutely elated to hear that she had been released. Unfortunately, the girls have told the chairman of the Dapchi Parents Association that 5 of the girls that were captured with them are feared dead.
But you have spoken, or journalists have spoken, to parents who have actually seen their daughters. I'm being careful here, but the Nigerian government hasn't been unerringly accurate, has it, in its reporting, in what it says about these abducted girls?
Yes, we've spoken to a number of parents who said they've seen their daughters. The girls have apparently now been taken to hospital where they're getting health checks to check that everything is all right in terms of their health. And some of these girls whose parents had actually seen them told their parents that they've been traveling for 4 days, that they were absolutely exhausted, and they're the ones that have also reported that 5 of their companions may be dead. And
just remind us, Mayani, about the abduction.
Yeah, so about 6 weeks ago, 110 schoolgirls were taken from a school in Dapchi in northeastern Nigeria. At the time, the attack was parallel to one to the 2014 abduction of over 200 Chibok girls. With that abduction, the difference was that some of the girls have been released, although many of them are still missing. The government said that it never paid money for those girls, but that it traded Boko Haram militants for their release.
How accurate is the reporting of all of this, and how active is Boko Haram?
Boko Haram continues to be very active. The kidnapping of the Dapchi girls highlighted some of the security flaws that still exist in the country. The government has now deployed security forces to the area to try and protect some schools, but there were claims by Amnesty International early this week that villagers before the Dapchi kidnapping had warned the army that the attack might happen and that nothing was done. So the security situation in the northeast, unfortunately, appears to still be quite insecure. But there's no doubt that today is a major victory for the parents of these kidnapped girls who finally get to see their daughters again.
Miani Jones in Lagos. Reports from Texas say the suspect in a series of bombings in the state capital Austin has died. The suspect detonated a device while being pursued by police, is the reporting. We can hear from Brian Manley, Chief of Police at the Austin Police Department. Here's what he said just a few moments ago.
Beginning within the past 24 to 36 hours, we started getting information on one person of interest that we continued to work on and continue to develop. And as we continued to do our investigations, this person of interest ultimately moved to being a suspect, and that's what we started focusing on, was his involvement in these crimes. Late last night and early this morning, we felt very confident that this was the suspect. in the bombing incidents that took place in Austin. We had surveillance teams looking for this suspect, and we ultimately located the vehicle that this suspect was known to be driving, and witnesses told us he was driving. And in fact, we found that at a hotel